Hello, everybody. I'm Kipp Snow, Director of the Transportation, Distribution, and Logistics Institute at the Community College of Baltimore County.
Hey, everybody. Mike Singer, Community Manager, Baltimore and Chesapeake Bay Shipwatchers. If this is your first time watching the podcast, we are a local maritime advocacy group, and we're just trying to help tell the story about the Port of Baltimore and how things work here at the port. What do we got? Episode number 44 on the podcast. This should be our anniversary edition or something.
Well, it has been a year. Everything is starting to, repeat itself as far as the edits and the recording software. So yeah, we have some breaking news in the port this week.
Yeah, we do. I mean, just when you think about it, just this huge company that people are in love with, and they're breaking into a new venue for them. People love this company. They love to go there. They post on Facebook when they visit. It all seems a little bit over the top and crazy. But get a load of this. Bucky's cruise ships coming to Baltimore. I mean, what do they have, like 126 gas pumps in the cruise ship or what? I mean, how does that work?
How big is the buffet?
Right. Well, you should read all the comments where I stole this picture from. I mean, okay. They're hilarious. So what do we call this? May Fools? I mean, you can't call it too late for April, right. And May Fools doesn't make sense. I don't know.
All right, full disclosure, Bucky's is not getting into the cruise industry. And they're not coming to Baltimore.
Well, we saw this and we couldn't resist.
It was a little fun. All right. No. All right. They're not the cruise line that's coming in. So
yeah.
All right. What? I struggled trying to keep
to keep a straight face on that one. Did you? When I was thinking about doing that earlier or last night, I was, oh my God, how am I going to keep a straight face when I start talking?
All right, let's get into some shipping updates.
All right, so a little bit before that, hey, if you're watching this podcast for the first time, you're watching on YouTube, give us a like, subscribe, hit the bell to be alerted to new podcasts as they come available. Yeah, so let's get right into our shipping update. And we normally talk about 4 weeks as a comparison, but we're going to roll through 6 weeks this time just so we can paint a picture. Because we're talking about tariffs and how things are affected. And you're going to talk about that a little bit more later on in the podcast. I watched several Sal Marcagliano, What's Up with Shipping videos. You transportation people, I meant to send you a link and say, oh my God, you got to watch this, because he dives into the available metrics from each West Coast port. And then he found, I don't know, Bureau of Transportation, I don't know what it was, some federal website that shows you like 10 different ports with like the spaghetti models. And oh man, it's awesome. You would love it. You would get lost for a couple hours.
In short, just real short. In short, basically what they are trying to describe with metrics is the bullwhip effect, meaning well, if you're into Wild West type stuff and you a bullwhip, this thing has a waved reaction that goes all the way through the rope. That's basically what's happening. Is anytime you make some type of big splash within the supply chain model, that ripple effect is going to happen. So this is part of what we're experiencing.
Yeah, and I think what Sal was saying is that he was pointing out that things are like starting to come back up, because you're getting new orders in from other places to compensate for what 35% downturn in that 1 week from your Chinese imports on the West Coast. Going to take a couple weeks for it to affect us here. Anyway, let's get back to, we'll probably talk about that.
Yeah, we'll chat some more.
Anyway, so the last 6 weeks, starting with March 29th. So this is your daily average. So every day, this number comes into the port. This many truck transactions. 3,500 6 weeks ago. 3,690. 3,660. 3 weeks ago, 3,759. And remember, that was with the 2 days over 4,000.
Correct.
Then we dropped by like 500 that next week, 3,233. And I had said, hey, if you average those two together, it's about 35, which is normalish. Mm-hmm. And then this past week, 3,542 truck transactions per day for the last week.
Yeah,
so we're still not seeing a constant adjustment that we can point to and go, okay, that's a number I haven't seen, and I've been seeing it for 2 and 3 and 4 weeks.
Okay,
right? You agree, or
I agree. I mean, and later on in this episode, I'll give you some metrics that I came across. Related to that. So yes, the 19th and the week of the 19th and the 26th, they do kind of balance out. So it still looks like to me, you've still got a fairly, strong basis for what, our container operations on the East Coast so far.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think that once there are some components to that, but we should also watch and see what's happening after some of these different tariff time starts actually get activated, and then see, the weeks corresponding after that, what happens and what fluctuates.
Mm-hmm.
One of the concerns right this minute is this is the time period that retailers are supposed to be placing their orders for the Christmas holiday to go over to the Asian market for manufacturing so that they get delivered in time for the shopping season.
Yeah.
Nobody is putting those orders in right this minute because they're all waiting to see what happens with the tariffs.
See, and that's what Sal was talking about. That's what Sal was talking about might be the bullwhip effect, is everything coming back. And he also got into empties. Like empties are at like an all-time high on the West Coast. And so and they're having trouble getting them back. And then that would prevent product from coming in. And then once the empties finally get over there, then you're going to be dealing with a bullwhip flood of people trying to get the product back in after this kind of reset.
Correct.
For lack of it.
So there is definitely going to be a little bit of volatility in those metric numbers. So
yeah.
All right. We'll get into some port news now. So we've got a big event coming up in a couple of weeks here at the port. National Maritime Day is scheduled. Our port celebration is scheduled to take place on Sunday, May the 18th. It's the Sunday after Preakness. So go out there and do your horse racing watching, and on Saturday, and then come out to National Maritime Day out at Pier 13 in Canton. Both the nuclear ship Savannah and the SS John W. Brown Liberty ship will be open for tours. So if you want to see what both of those ships are going to, what they look like, this is your opportunity to go take advantage of that. The nuclear containment facility inside the Savannah will be open for tours. If you ever wanted to go be inside of a nuclear reactor, this is your time. Now, the nuclear reactor is no longer in the ship. It's somewhere out in the desert in the west.
Right.
But the containment room where it was housed is there. Now they've done an amazing job at trying to paint everything up and get everything, orderly so that they can, accept people for tours. So this will be a really, really cool event to be able to see that. at 10:30. I'm sorry, at 11:30 on that day, aboard the Savannah, they will have a commemoration ceremony, and it's about 30 minutes, and they'll have a number of speakers and in commemoration of the maritime industry. This is all centered around not the nuclear ship Savannah, but the steamship Savannah. This is
backstory.
There's the backstory. This is to celebrate the first transatlantic crossing by a steamship from the U.S. to Europe. And so that's kind of the backstory there. The nuclear ship Savannah was named after the steamship Savannah because of the nuclear components, or the charge by President Eisenhower to build a multi-purpose ship under nuclear power for commercial means, to show that atomic energy could be used for peaceful measures.
There you go.
Yeah, so that's why that's kind of the interconnectivity with all of that. The John W. Brown is tied up on the same pier, and so they work together to put this event on. So if you're interested in this is a great opportunity for you to come out. I think there's a food truck that'll be out there, so you don't have to worry about that part of it. Mike, you'll be out there with the ship watchers. Stop by and see Mike and the pick up.
Yeah, we're going to have a tent. We might have a few things to sell for sale. We'll have some giveaways, some small giveaways. Yeah, so you won't be able to miss us. Stop by and say hi.
I'll be out there. We'll be broadcasting live starting at 11:30 on the Shipwatchers YouTube of the commemoration ceremony. So if you can't make it out, please join us online through YouTube, and you can see the commemoration ceremony. We'll try to take a bunch of video and things and put something together for everybody to see for all of the events.
Sounds good. And if I could elaborate on that for just a second.
Go ahead, yeah.
So when we talk about the John Brown, this is a Liberty ship. These were ships that were built to supply and liberate Europe. In World War II, they built 2,700 of them. They built over 300 here in Baltimore. The John Brown was built in Baltimore, one of only 2 that are still fully operational. So you really are seeing a fascinating piece of history. And what's a great comparison and irony is right next door, there's some really huge ships, and then you can look at those monstrosities and then look next door at the John Brown, and I mean, it looks like a rowboat by comparison. But then you get yourself in there and climb into a hold and maybe go see the store and go see the engine room, and you're like, okay, this is not a rowboat. And, people used to sleep here, and, but it is quite interesting that it was built here, and she's one of only 2 that are fully operational, and you get to put your feet on it and go walk around and check it out.
Then the other one is, do you remember what the other one is?
In San Francisco?
Yeah, the Jeremiah O'Brien. You can actually follow them on Facebook also if you're interested in that, and they promote their ship just like the Brown does. So it's pretty cool to watch them.
And then one little more nugget about the Savannah. I mean, this thing was built in the 50s, right? It's 50s? Anyway, I mean, it's like a time capsule. So the inside of that thing is like a time capsule, and I like to describe it as, a cross between, like Art Deco Miami and the Jetsons. I mean, it's like stuck between the future and the past. It really is fascinating to go in there and look around. And I'm hoping I can make it, because, I'm always manning that tent, which is great, and you get to meet people and stuff, and that's wonderful. But then, I always have trouble getting away to get up for the ceremony. Yeah. So I would like to be there for that.
Be able to do that, sure. 1959 was when it was launched, so the late 50s was when it was built. You're correct.
And for a little bit more history, for 456,926 Shipwatcher bonus points, who is the lady at the podium?
That is Helen Bentley.
Right. So, I mean, she only has her name on the port, right?
Right.
So, should be worth at least 400,000 Shipwatcher bonus points. That's from 2012 on the Savannah.
Yeah, I think I was actually there that day.
Oh yeah?
Yeah, if I remember correctly. Yeah.
Oh, that's cool. Very cool.
Related to the John Brown, when you and I took that trip on the Brown from Norfolk to Baltimore after it was coming out of dry dock, we'd taken a bunch of video, and we had a podcast recording on the ship. Unfortunately, some of my amateur video operations is not the best, so some of the audio for that weekend's recording didn't come through properly. But I did,
which is a bummer, because we really, I mean, we were really trying to do a good job. We're like interviewing people and talking to folks and trying to engage. And basically none of it came through on audio, huh?
Yeah, no, the audio stuff. But what I've done, I'm going back through all the video, and I'd like to, put some pieces together so that the public can go and look at some of this. I do have a video put together of us going through the store. So when you're out at the, if you come out to Pier 13 for Maritime Day and you go on the John Brown, they have a little store that you can buy some memorabilia or a gift shop and
some swag. They've got T-shirts and hats and all kind of stuff.
Why don't we pull that up? All right, so this is a video we put together of the ship store, the gift shop that they have, and so Mike's here narrating us going through the ship store, but it's pretty significant. The different items that they have for sale. They had all different kinds of T-shirts. You're holding this one up now. You can go, oh, okay. Well, what's going on here? Well, Brownie is one of they actually have her painted up on the back portion of the ship. So that gets
right. The old school World War II. The way they Now, what was that called? The person.
I don't know if it was
a name. All right, we should trash this whole podcast and start over again. No. But you know what I mean? Like on the nose of a bomber plane or whatever, there was somebody who represented the plane. They gave her a name or something.
So they had that image on some of the shirts. They had lots of other shirts if you just wanted the logo. Lots of books for shipping and maritime around that time period. All kinds of patches. Some of them were, like kind of a military base, but all had some kind of, connection to the ship.
Yep.
Lots of mugs and
a lot of great gifts. And, if you don't get to the John Brown that often, you want to take a few mementos with you. There really is some great stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. So and the staff that was there, they're all volunteer.
Right.
And so the money that they raise goes to help keep the preservation of the ship moving forward and all of the maintenance and everything that they have to do. Now, it doesn't fully cover it, but it helps offset that. So the volunteers are extremely passionate and supportive of making sure that the ship is staying alive and keeping up with the legacy of everything that it has throughout its history.
And it really is a labor of love. They really do a lot of work to keep it up and running and going.
So that want everybody to at least take a look at that and say, hey, look, there is an opportunity for you to go purchase some things on the nuclear ship Savannah. They also have a little shop store.
It's true,
not as big, but they do have a number of items there. So if you come out for Maritime Day, make sure you bring a couple extra bucks. You can stop by both ships and help support them, and you can walk away with,
a nice memento. Yeah. So This week you attended a supply chain networking event.
You know what? I would say this week we were both extremely busy.
Right.
And so it was hard to kind of keep up with everything that was going on.
Right.
So this past Wednesday evening, you went out on the Baltimore Seafarers cruise.
Right.
And so I stopped by in the World Trade Center Institute. So they're an organization that promotes transportation, trade, and business within the Baltimore region.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is they have convened a group that top leaders within the supply chain and manufacturing and port logistics industries here to come together and start talking about issues that prevent us from operating at 100%. So this is the group here that the World Trade Center Institute is helping us to build this supply chain networking group. And who you see here are representatives from big name manufacturing here. You had Under Armour, Domino Sugar, McCormick, a lot of your manufacturers that are here in the city. You had port logistics, transportation operations, or representatives. And then I was there from the educational and training perspective. And there was to just start learning who these people are and how might we be able to have conversations together in order to address a lot of the different issues and problems that are out there that of trying to move products to customers.
Okay.
So it was a great opportunity. You can see Jonathan Daniels was up there in the top part there of the picture. We had, it gave us an opportunity to go and talk with some of these different representatives, figure out who they are, what some of their challenges are.
So how did that get put together?
Well, the Jeremy over at the World Trade Center Institute he does an amazing job at outreach and reaching out to different companies and people and letting them say, hey, look, we've got this initiative. We know that these are issues within our industry. We want you to come join us so that we can talk about what these problems are. And he's a great problem solver is what I refer Jeremy to. Yeah, so that was great benefit there. I'm talking with some folks from Trade Point Atlantic terminals. So it was a great time for us to be able to engage in maybe some non-structured conversations, which may lead to, solutions in the future. Jonathan did get up and speak for just a couple of minutes to kind of explain what all we're all trying to accomplish here.
Lay the groundwork.
Yeah, laid the groundwork, but he framed it around the recent. I think some of you may have seen here that there was a Maryland delegation that went over to Asia, I believe a week before. And this happened. All states do this. This isn't they went and met with representatives from Japan and South Korea to see how they can go and invest within the U.S. With manufacturing or different type of distribution solutions and things. That's part of what they are trying to do is drum up business for the Port of Baltimore. So some of the points that he had coming out of this was that just to kind of put a basis as to why tariffs are important to pay attention to and understand. 40%. This is what Jonathan was explaining, and I was writing some notes down. 40% of the world's consumption takes place in the U.S.
Wow.
That was fascinating that we are driving 40% of the world's economy through what we purchase.
That's really interesting. Now I'm going to go ahead and go here. We're all, nobody likes to lose a job, obviously. And, we are seeing some effects from tariffs or just the idea of talking about tariffs.
Sure.
Right. When they haven't even been, maybe some of them haven't even been actually started yet. But gosh, when you think about that, the 40% number, it lets you know that, we might be able to be, less reactionary, and maybe we could plan to affect some things the way we would want them to. I mean, if we're driving 40%, I mean, that's an awful lot by one place.
Correct.
So,
So
not that we want to run the world or control the world, but
right.
why not have, if we have that much, not control, but if that much
influence,
why not have things a little bit more tailored to us?
I think that's kind of the premise of what we are seeing with some of the executive orders and things like that. That, and that's not. I'm not stating this from. This isn't a political. This is economic.
Right.
This is explaining what really what is happening related to other things in the world.
Right.
One of the things he talked about, he mentioned Subaru. So I think that they met with representatives from Subaru.
Okay.
And they talked about tariffs. And one of the things he says you had to be careful in how it was explained, to make sure that that we're not creating a bigger problem for ourselves just in those conversations. And the reason why is that, like Subaru, we have manufacturing, and I think he said it was in Indiana. We have a Subaru plant that currently manufactures cars in the U.S., but their particular model is tied to the recent tariffs that were just announced for auto part imports. And so if you import, now if we're having to pay tariffs on parts, they have to make some decisions based on pre-assembly before it gets to the U.S. or post-assembly after the U.S.
Or what percentage of your parts are imported, and do you want to boost that percentage of how much is made in the U.S. and then can you get above a threshold? I don't know.
Subaru said that no matter what, any major change to manufacturing will take 2 to 3 years. So implementing a tariff is not going to force, they don't have the ability to, within 30 days, switch manufacturing operations to the U.S. to avoid tariffs.
I would imagine not.
So there is definitely some impact in the way that decisions are made, no matter what the decision is. The other thing that he mentioned is that automobiles currently, because of the tariffs, are being stored in ports awaiting customs clearance.
I have heard of at least one brand. Reporter contacted me, and he said he was contacted by the Port of Baltimore and told that there were some imports that were being held. Now, I still haven't been able to verify that, but then it's got to be. I mean, it can't be long before you run out of room to store them, and then the imports stop coming in because there's no room.
And that's exactly what he was explaining, is that they, right this second, they're okay, but they're going to be at max capacity soon, and they're actively seeking other space to be able to store these autos until, this gets cleared out. So even those types of transactions are having to be addressed. Specifically with container operations, starting this week, you're going to start seeing about a 35% dip in container imports out on the West Coast, specifically in Los Angeles. Now, in comparison, only 9% of China exports come to Baltimore.
And they're less than 20% of our container imports here.
Yes. So so Jonathan was trying to explain, hey, yes, you're going to see, pressers coming out of the West Coast, that there's such a huge disparity in the amount of or percentage of of imports.
Mm-hmm.
But that's a lot of that has to do with the direct lane from China to the U.S. And so we're going to have a lot more transactions that are European or
Mm-hmm.
Eastern Asian based coming into our port. So
Mm-hmm.
that help I think I hope helps to explain. No, we probably are not going to see a 35% dip like that. We will be impacted, but each port, depending on the products that are imported and where they are coming from, are going to have different effects.
Mm-hmm.
So that was interesting to hear from that business perspective of some of those metrics and how it relates to us as a nation, how it
Right.
impacts us as a port, and all of that information helps us to make better decisions, not only within the manufacturing sector or the transportation sector, or even with me from the workforce development perspective of how do we need to train the people with the right skill set currently with what's happening with it within the the business of things today. So
Right. And then it is interesting. Sal talked a lot about who you're listening to, who's doing the reporting, where they get their numbers from, what numbers they're using, right? So I think he was doing Long Beach, LA,
okay,
and last week was good, but I think it was this upcoming week because they've got stuff planned and they've got graphs. I mean, it's amazing the data that they have out there in real time, and you just pull it up on a website and there it is. Maybe it's 2 weeks from now. They're expecting a 35% dip. Now, that 35% dip is over last year week at the same time. Okay. Then the next week it goes back up, but there are two numbers under that, right? It's the comparison from last year and the comparison from last week, right? So two completely different numbers. So even though they're expecting a 35% dip, and you can clearly see the number difference,
yeah,
I don't remember what they were. But then it comes back up as like a little bit of a rebound, like we were talking about, and it's 35% up from the week before, right? So if you're thinking 35% over a year, that's drastic. But 35% of that 35% is a lot less, but
yeah.
it's still going uphill, which we want to see so that everybody has work to do at the ports.
Right. I'm glad that Sal explained it that way.
Yes, and I would encourage, and we should have embedded some of this, and maybe we'll do it next week. But if you're wondering what's going on, if you're seeing people on social media freaking out about percentages and ports are empty and all this other fantastic stuff that people are saying, just type in Sal Mercogliano into the YouTube browser. I think it's What's Up with Shipping.
I'll put the link right here. How about that?
Okay, perfect. Grab just watch like the last 5 of his videos that are talking about shipping in the world, because he talks about a whole bunch of other ship specific stuff that might not be that. But like watch the last 2 or 3 or 5 where he's talking about ship traffic and cargo and tariffs and what's going on, and you will get an education about the real numbers and where they really come from. So talk about busy weeks. You actually were part of this huge hiring event at your college. What was that? Was Thursday?
Yeah, so Thursday out at the Community College of Baltimore County's Dundalk Campus, we partnered with the Baltimore Port Alliance, the Port of Baltimore's association that helps all of the public and private port entities in the region. We partnered and hosted a hiring event on Thursday. I think this is the 6th annual.
Wow.
One that we've done. And I've got some pictures here to
Okay, cool.
to show. but we had 42
Like
we had 42
companies, vendors.
industry companies
Mhm.
in attendance.
Mhm.
So some of it was the MDOT, the Maryland Department of Transportation agencies that were hiring. Some of them were the terminal operators. Ports America Chesapeake was there. Terminal Corporation was there. Um, Freight forwarders and just in freight distributors, trucking companies. Um, Kiewit was out there.
Yeah, we should have gotten a picture of that.
So they were out there hiring, starting to prepare their workforce for the bridge construction.
Oh, so it was like out like in the lobby, like in the main.
Yeah. This is out in
Wasn't like in the.
atrium of the student center, and
Mm-hmm.
so we had about 42 companies, about 300 job seekers showed up.
Mm-hmm.
And so they had the ability to talk with each one of the company representatives, talk about what those jobs are, submit resumes. We had a
Mm-hmm.
little room off to the side for those who were able to do interviews on the spot.
Nice.
Yeah, that was pretty neat. We had the college programming out there, so we've got some grant funding that's available to cover some of the training programs for the people who for the jobs that they're hiring for.
Mm-hmm.
Let me back up there. And so that was a great opportunity for everybody to kind of sync up all in the same space. We had a professional photographer come and provide the professional
Like headshot, yeah.
headshot, the portraits for those who might need to use those in a professional setting.
Right, because like I told you, I had to take my own, and then every once in a while I see it like at work, and I'm like, oh, that's bad.
Yeah. So I'm hoping I'm waiting to see how mine comes out, but because I got mine updated also. But it was an excellent time for both of those communities to be able to come together and engage and see if we can address some of the workforce needs. So that was a good event this week.
Great. A lot of people might say, well, it seems like everything's kind of working. What might be some details of things that you might be working for, towards when you're getting together talking about, supply chain networking and stuff? Just wondering, do you have any examples of like things you were targeting to try to work on or fix or improve at the networking event?
Yeah,
Or is
yeah.
that something that just kind of comes out of conversation and you really didn't get there yet?
All of the above, actually.
Mm.
So if you don't have something in place, or if maybe companies might be doing this within their own silo, within their own company, but they know that they need to. We may not know that the same problem is happening with the firm right next door
Until you talk to them.
until you talk to them, and then the two of the two firms then can use the economies of scale to benefit each other to go and address the same problem. I mean, it could be things like that. In this particular meeting this week, there was not a major issue that we needed to tackle and
Wasn't like
solve.
some thing or two or three things from the last year or 6 months were like, hey, we really should get everybody together and talk about it.
Correct, and this is kind of the starting point for that. I believe that as this group continues to grow, build upon it, and start to do some outreach and pull in some other manufacturers here locally, because that wasn't a full representation of our region at all.
Mm-hmm.
We will be able to identify some major issues from a micro, not a mid macro economic perspective. Our region's economic needs, and I think collectively we'll all be able to go and put initiatives in place at our own companies and firms to be able to tackle the problem as a whole. And I know that sounds like a bunch of jargon. That's
well, that's and I'm sorry. That's kind of why I asked the question, because did kind of sound a little jargonish, and I was trying to get into the details for the listeners.
Here would be a good example.
Okay.
So Jonathan got up and talked about tariffs,
which nobody really likes to talk.
Well, it's not that, but it is an economic model that can be used to drive. I get that.
Right. And there are already existing tariffs going both ways that
correct.
we don't ever talk about.
That is absolutely
We're only
correct.
talking about it because we want to effect some change in our direction positively.
Here might be an example. So when I was working back in industry, I worked for a German electronics company, and my role was logistics, was the freight movement from Germany to the U.S.
Mm-hmm.
So we were constantly watching tariffs and tariff changes. I had to be embedded in that import process and understand, where a fluctuation in a tariff may change the markup on the product, and we could lose money, or we could lose business because of the way that the pricing structure is centered around that tariff.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's very important for us to be involved in that process so that we aren't taken advantage of, we don't lose business. But it also gave us the ability to have conversations with our competitors, with our customers, with the with U.S. Customs. I mean, we had to engage with U.S. Customs on a regular basis about our products. And so those types of problems, we have to make sure that it doesn't prevent us from doing business effectively.
Mm-hmm.
Even like a temporary increase could be the deciding factor of us shutting a whole division down, or changing where we go and do manufacturing, or the way that we do business.
Right.
So that was, there isn't, hey, we're going to go, put sandwich boards and go protest, a 10% hike on tariffs. That's not what this is about. It's,
right.
Hey, where does this fit in the whole ecosystem of the economy and the business? And how do we ensure that we can continue to be business sustainable through the whole process?
Right. And here's one quick example that has nothing to do with tariffs, as far as I know, and happened a year or two ago. So Guinness came in and built like a visitor center / brewery / production operation, right? And then they came up with I forget what the name of the beer was, but it's
is that like, the blonde,
the Guinness blonde, right? Yeah. That was, supposedly, Maryland kind of affected, flavored, whatever, and was made, produced, brewed, packaged, shipped out, all right here, right off of Route 1, Southern, and then somebody, I guess, was looking at the numbers and realized that for whatever reason, production at that place is a bit more expensive than it is somewhere else. And they shut down that whole production arm. Now, you can still visit the place. It's still a nice place. There's, a bar, and then there's another restaurant, and there's a gift shop, and, they still brew all the stuff, right? All the, they still do their own brewing in 10 different types of beers, and there's still a lot going on, but they took out that whole production and moved it. Another example is, we've been going into Domino Sugar as a tour. Some of the tours before, you could see the little sugar packets going by, right? And and they didn't even bother like going out and like mounting like a fancy strobe like industry. They just found like a strobe light, like laid it on the side, set it at the right speed, right? And so these things are flying by. I mean, you can't even see them. Yeah, that's why they put the strobe on it, so you could actually see the little packet name as it's going by at like 500 miles an hour. That whole packet production has been moved to another plant. I would imagine for, same reasons. For some reason, it's cheaper to make those packets somewhere else, even though where's my Domino's info thing that I gave to David on the cruise. So when he went by Domino, he had I had a whole bunch. But yeah, so same thing, realized that maybe the production of the little sugar packets was cheaper at a different Domino facility. And so when you go through for the tour, it's all got plastic over it because maybe, the economies will change in a different locality way that will bring that production back to Baltimore at some point. I mean, they're already making dozens of product lines there, but
sure. Those are two very good examples that relates to what we're talking about. Absolutely. Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah. So, one thing that's, a little exciting about doing this for a while is you really start to make some contacts, right? And you build relationships with people, and it's really exciting when you build them with industry folks or people who are out on the water getting stuff done. On the cruise, on the Seafarers cruise, which somehow we've left photos out, and I don't know what the heck we were thinking. But I met a tug captain that I've been having conversations with on Facebook for a couple of years.
Mm-hmm.
And I just walked up to him. Hi, who are you? Hey, I'm, all this time we're just meeting for the first time. And so that was cool. But then when the captain of the James Rankin sends you an email, right? That's pretty darn cool. And so when the captain of the James Rankin, the buoy tender who's stationed at our Coast Guard yard here in Baltimore, that does all the buoy work for the entire Chesapeake Bay, basically, invites you to come out and be a part of the laying of the Francis Scott Key buoy and commemoration, to be actually on the ship. That's a really cool moment that I don't take for granted. So here is a really cool picture. So you see the buoy's already in the water, but let's just get just a hint of the size of this thing. So here are two people, and you can only see a slight angle of one small part of this buoy. Now you roll up to buoys, let's say you're in a tour boat, or maybe if you have your own boat or you're out on a friend's boat. And I mean, they look big, but they don't look as big as they do when you see this thing go up in the air or it's laying on its side on this boat. So it looks like he is getting ready to disconnect the buoy, so it's truly disconnected from the boat. And then his coworker has her hands on the back of his harness, okay, if something goes down, you're not going over. I mean, just it is kind of incredible to see. Let's see, now you get a feel for, look at these tiny little humans up here on this deck. And look how monstrous this is. So just the red and white paint has got to be, 10 feet, 12 feet?
So this thing's 40 foot tall, 50 foot tall?
It's unbelievable how big it is. But yeah, so we've been invited to that, so we're going to try to make that happen. And so yeah, that'll
try to bring some sights and sounds from the day and share with everybody else. So
yeah, that would be really cool.
You've got you've got a video from the Baltimore County Police Department Marine Unit.
Mm-hmm.
They have a Marine unit? I know they have a Marine unit. They have a Marine unit?
Yes.
What
Yes.
does the city police have to do with maritime?
Right. So, and interesting, I learned a little bit of history about this. So there's a marina called the McCluskey Marina.
Okay.
It is in Old Road Bay, which is between Sparrows Point and North Point. Which, if you go back in your history, and if you've spent any time with me on the camera, I'm always pointing out that's where the British anchored their ships and hid. So you're around a corner from Baltimore, right? That's where they anchored to march to Baltimore. That's why it's called Old Road Bay.
Wow.
Yes. But up in one of those creeks is McCluskey Marina. Bill McCluskey 50 years ago was the guy who started the Baltimore County Marine Police.
I woke up to no less than a dozen phone calls. Immediately, I knew something was wrong. I just didn't know what. Somebody had sent me a text that said the Kipp Bridge fell. I'll be honest, I didn't believe right away. I had grown up in this area, and I used to work this area right down here, and I'd driven over that bridge a lot of times, 100 times, 1,000 times. And to know that it was gone, very unusual feeling, a very surreal feeling. We knew that there was a crew working on the bridge at the time that it collapsed. At this time, we did not know how many people were in the water. We didn't even know where we were supposed to be looking on the entire span of the bridge. So we got on boats and we used ROVs, remotely operated vehicles, and sonar. We tried to narrow down where we were supposed to start. One of the other teams dove very briefly on the first day at night, and they dove just to see if there was a person in the vehicle, and if there were any signs of life, then we were going to go in and get them. Ultimately, it was determined that there weren't any signs of life. We held off until daybreak so we could actually somewhat see what we were doing.
It was always going to be incredibly dangerous going in there. No matter how much you map out an area, the underwater drones, they don't pick up every single thing. They provide a 3D image and just a general idea of where things are. It was never truly safe, but that's part of the job of our team, is you have to accept the dangers that go into it.
There was no visibility. You can't see anything. Everything's done by feel. We dove down on the truck. We were able to find the truck, but then you have to feel around to try to orient yourself. Part of the roadway had fallen on the vehicle. There was rebar in the vehicle. There was a lot of issues we were running into. Ultimately, myself and several of our people, we ended up going in and we were able to rig the vehicle we put chains through the wheels and over the axles, and then we inflated them with lift bags. Then we were able to have additional divers go in and pull the victims out.
If I had one word to describe the ongoing efforts to deal with this tragedy, it would be tireless. All the men and women in both the Marine unit and the dive team never stopped working for that whole time. If they went home, they were on call to come back at any moment if something was found that needed to be recovered.
When people think about scuba diving, they think about diving in the Caribbean or off the coast of California. This is very different. We have a task that we're trying to accomplish. We train to complete those tasks in all types of conditions.
Learn from this incident that we were ready. We were not ready in the capacity of how big of a disaster this was, but we do train for disasters all the time. We knew who to call. We knew what to do in a sense of what needed to happen and how it needed to happen. To receive the award for exceptional group performance, I'm humbled. We're a group that works hand in hand all the time. So in order to see everybody rewarded for that, for every effort they did, whether you were getting coffee, fueling a boat, working on a vessel to get it back up and running during this event, 30 days, 8 hours, 12 hours a day on a boat is a long time. But just to see everybody rewarded for it is a good feeling.
To the members of the team, I'd just like to say, thanks for doing what you do. We train hard all the time. I know these are definitely not the most glamorous of dives, and this is a voluntary position. So we're putting ourselves in this position because we want to be here. And I appreciate that. To the Police Foundation, thank you for taking the time to recognize us. We appreciate it.
it just kind of a gut reaction. They didn't do all of that work just to get the award. I don't,
Right.
I know that they're saying that, but like that, they did the work because that's what they wanted to do. They're volunteers, and that's just I'm just speechless with that aspect of it. I just
Yep. And I'm not going to say a whole lot here, but the only reason I even knew about this is because one of the officers sent that to me. So
yeah, I think it's important that video gets shown because
right.
If you don't know, you speculate, and you just don't understand how much of the danger it is that's involved in it, and they just went, they understood and considered the danger, but they still moved forward, and just
you've got a job to do, and oh my gosh, what can we do to help these people?
Yeah.
And when you talk to somebody like myself who was basically watching these efforts all day, every day, right? But we're watching, now the only cameras that are around are cameras that, people set up temporarily on the shore from 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 miles away, or the camera that we helped to set up that caught the Key Bridge accident, right? So, once it became the next day, the next week, as the process for trying to recover these folks went on, people are watching intently for minutes, hours, every day. And so you don't get a picture of how things were up close unless somebody gets recognized and puts out a video like this. So, we thought it was important to share.
And quite honestly, I kind of get the feeling that group wasn't looking to try to promote all of that. They just wanted to do the job that they were charged with doing. So it's important to recognize that.
I agree. And I will go a little bit further and say, I don't think there's probably not a whole lot of sharing. Oh, look, I won this award. No, this was put on the Baltimore County Police Facebook page. It's public for everybody to see, but of course, it's nice to be recognized, but I don't think anybody's.
Yeah, there would be other things that I would prefer to be recognized for if that was me. But I also understand the context around what was happening.
All right, so is that all we have for today? I think.
Yeah, I think that's all the big news for today. I know from an upcoming events perspective, we between this podcast and the next podcast, we'll go a little bit more in depth about National Maritime Day coming up on Sunday, May the 18th.
Mm-hmm.
I'm also going down to U.S. Department of Transportation headquarters on the 22nd for their National Maritime Day commemoration ceremony. And so I'll take a report out and some pictures from that event.
Great. That would be great.
Yeah. So National Maritime Day is coming up. On May the 12th, you've got your Woodwind sailings on History Mondays coming up. So May the 12th, have they released the tickets yet, or do they need another?
No, it won't be until in another couple of days. So the 5th or the 6th, they'll go on sale.
I would imagine that you'll put up a link in the Shipwatchers group to promote that. Okay, good.
Yes.
All right, so those are the two big things that we have coming right this minute from upcoming events.
Mm-hmm.
From the Port of Baltimore history for this episode. In 1975, the city of Baltimore adopted a proposal for the construction of a replica sailing vessel as a centerpiece of its inner harbor revitalization efforts. iconic Baltimore clipper was chosen because of the pivotal role the Baltimore privateer vessels played in the War of 1812. So the Pride of Baltimore was the first Baltimore clipper to be built in 150 years, and the first tall ship to represent a city and a state was commissioned on May 1st, 1977. So there's our May date of history.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
The Pride of Baltimore was commissioned on May 1st in 1977 in a ceremony at the Inner Harbor, attended by thousands. During the 9 years at sea, it had voyages between Bermuda, New York, and Nova Scotia in 1977, and their final European voyage in 1986. Pride of Baltimore extended the hand of friendship to countless visitors. Unfortunately, on May 14th, 1986, on our way home from that European campaign, it was struck by a microburst squall north of Puerto Rico, and the ship sank. The ship, the captain, and the 3 crew members were unfortunately lost at sea. And after that, by 1986, there were plans for a replacement, which is what we have now as the Pride of Baltimore 2 that's in the harbor. So in our history segment in 1977, the original Pride of Baltimore was commissioned in May.
Cool.
Little history nugget for you there.
Yeah.
And I think that's all that I have for today.
Yeah. So one little additional thing, not related to anything else, but I created a new store with some new swag, some new hats, like some trucker caps, some like pastel caps, some like drinking glasses, polo shirts for the first time. So if you go to my Facebook page or the Shipwatchers Facebook group, and then eventually it'll be on the website. But if you have access, if you follow me on Facebook or if you're in the Shipwatchers group, you should be able to get that address, or maybe we'll try to
put it right here.
Put it right there.
Okay.
So just a reminder, we are Baltimore and Chesapeake Bay Shipwatchers, just 2 guys talking ship podcast. We are on Instagram, Reddit, Threads, all over the place for socials.
Yep. And if you want to listen to the audio broadcast of this, Spotify and Apple Podcasts, we have it on YouTube, all over.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So if you like what you hear, if you think what we do is interesting, give us a share across social media. Tell your friends. We appreciate it.
All right, let's count this one off. 3, 2, 1. Happy shipwatching. That one's going to back. That one's not going to work.
Who cares?
It's all good.
All right, everybody. Thanks a lot for watching. Have a great week.